right, this one's for the more extreme guys. Downhills with big boulders. You'll find a lot of this kind of stuff out at King of the Motos. They'll send you down some hills, or maybe you need to make a pass that's like outside the main line. This happened to me at King of the Motos a couple times. And there's big jagged boulders off to the side. You have to ride through it basically. One thing I want to mention about it is body position. You got to be in a back body position. Bend your upper body at the hips a little bit more to bring the upper body down. Bend the ankles back just a hair to get the knees back behind the toes just a little bit more. The butt's going to be back towards the back of the seat and you want to stay real low. That's going to keep your center of gravity a little bit lower. And it's going to feel awkward at first, but it's actually going to allow you to balance quite a bit easier. And so get real far back and get down. It feels awkward at first to get in that back body position. Keeps your center of gravity a little bit lower. And then the other thing is, don't give up just because your bike starts sliding or the front end gets deflected. Even if it gets deflected like a foot sometimes, try to keep the feet on the pegs and stay with it as you're going. And try to allow yourself to keep some forward momentum. Just hang on to the bike and allow the bike to continue to go forward. That will allow you to continue to balance. Sure, you're going to slide and drift and kind of surf the rocks a little bit, but the other thing that's going to help with that is a little bit taller of a gear, so that if I do let the clutch out, if I'm in a too low of a gear, the bike's going to be in a higher RPM. The suspension's not going to settle quite as much. I like to be in a gear that is appropriate for the speed that I decide to carry. So if I let the clutch out and want to accelerate forward to get my front end up over another big jagged rock or something like that, I don't want to be in too low of a gear like first or second. If I'm going a little bit faster, if I let that clutch out, I want to be in a gear that I can still accelerate forward. I'm not at the top of the RPMs. I'm more in the low part of the RPM. So when I do let the clutch out, it's going to be the most tractable power available for that given speed that I decided to go. So depends on the speed you're going. Try all those different things. The body position, so staying farther back, keeping low, bend at the hips a little bit more. If you have to, bend the ankles so that the knees come back a little bit farther. Keep the weight super low, and that'll keep the front end a little bit lighter. That should help your balance on those really jagged downhill rock sections. Let me know if that helps.
All right, just to elaborate on being in a taller gear, there's going to be times where we're going to blip the throttle a little bit and just let the clutch all the way out to engage the rear wheel. And we want to do that right at that moment where the rear wheel is starting to go over the biggest, loosest rock, because that'll help keep our bike going forward, track us forward. If we let the clutch out and the rear tire is wanting to slow us down, like almost like a brake, like engine braking, there's going to be resistance on the ground, which is going to disturb the rocks from side to side and give you more chance of kicking the rear end out to one side or the other. So how we use the brakes is very important as well. We're using the brakes, but we're not necessarily locking the brakes up, and we actually have to modulate the brakes depending on how big, we have to kind of determine as we're going over these rocks, like how fast do we let the wheels spin. So, and if we're on a really steep downhill, we're trying not to get going too fast. So it can be really tricky to get a hang of, but it could take some guts and you might have some failures. I still tip over trying to do this stuff too. More often than not, your slow speed, flat ground work drills, the more you have those dialed, the more you can move your body around, and the instincts that you've developed should allow you to stay up a little longer in more sketchy situations. There's going to be failures along the way. Just hang in there and keep practicing, and try to just think about this stuff when you're riding and implement it a little bit.